It's actually a big challenge that we face on the continent, on a global level at large. So there are short-term and long-term impacts, and you can see a lot of loss of income for workers now. They've been put on hold, and those who have had to take shift work. And these homes, it means now they've less money available for food. So, and also if you formal export of food has been seriously affected as well by restrictions at our borders. Is that we've got a lot of migrants in the country in South Africa, and they're breadwinners, and those households abroad are now going to feel the impact very severely.
All right, so has agricultural output already felt the effects in terms of production so far?
Well, it's difficult because in other instances, this has just come very unexpectedly. And as you're aware, we've already had our own challenges on the continent with the cyclones and also droughts in the locust outbreak, and diseases as well. So now with this COVID, it's not going to help us at all. But there's no point sitting and crying about it. It's time that we need to have hands on deck and prioritize agriculture because it's very important, especially on the continent where we know we've always had poverty as our enemy. So it's important that we actually need to scale up.
So, I mean, if you were able to pick up the phone and talk to the heads of state across the continent on a sort of collect call with all of them at the same time, what would you be telling our heads of state right now? Because my fear is we talk about building immune systems, but in the time of COVID-19, if you don't have food, that immunity can become quite challenged.
You're right. And the first person that I'll call is the AU Chair, President Ramaphosa. I hope he's listening. I would urge him to create a platform for all member states to engage and collaborate, considering that agriculture is one of the key economic sectors, and also maybe to get experts and advisors in immediate implementation, and then calling on all the governments, all the heads of state and stakeholders and cities as well. So it's not just the heads of state only. I think it's every single individual who has to come on board to do whatever they can to ensure food sovereignty. It's now time into our indigenous knowledge and also time to adapt into smart ways of farming. But I don't know how we're going to achieve it because the school programs have been disrupted as well. So we've got all these variability, climatic changes, which are also not helping us. So I've always advocated to say we need to now adapt smart ways of farming and disease-resistant crops, drought-resistant crops, and so forth. But unfortunately, with the COVID in the way, we are all going to suffer in the long run. But what we can do, we need to be pro. So we need to get those seeds into the ground now. I've been speaking to ministers from other neighboring countries. They've got quite a lot of challenges. Like, for example, in Lesotho, they're trying to get fuel, and it's not been very easy for them to have the fuel. And other countries like Botswana, Eswatini, they rely on South Africa seeds. So it's time we also now try and get central seed banks. So now with the COVID in the way, with restrictions on the borders, it's going to be very difficult. So to the heads of state, I think they need to now put their heads together and bring that one voice, one Africa, so that we can all work together collectively. Because we really need to scale up and we need to start farming, and that has to be done now. Also, on that note, Peter, we're losing a lot of farmers now selling their farmers. Like even here in South Africa, we've got dairy farmers selling, we've got like big citrus plantation farmers also selling. So I'm also appealing to the farmers to say, please do whatever you can so that we can all pull through this together collectively. Selling is not really the option right now. We need you. So I'm appealing to you as a food security ambassador, more importantly, as a farmer, as a commercial farmer, my country, there's a need for us to actually get all the support that we can from all the governments. They need to give all their farmers as much support as they can. They create an enabling environment that we need to scale up.
All right, you talked about agricultural systems and ways of farming, because if we think about the arable land that's available to us on the continent, I think we have the lion's share of the arable land in the world. It shouldn't be that Africa is food insecure. In fact, we should be a net exporter of food. So a lot needs to change, I guess, just in the way that we do farming.
Indeed, but how do we do it? We talk about free trade zone, but look at the infrastructure. Some countries don't even have the basic infrastructure. There is no electricity. You need storage facilities that will be powered by electricity. We got so many insurgencies. So it is time, and I'm also calling for it to say it's time to silence the guns and get the farming implements. Instead of those guns, let's swap them for farming implements, because this is not going to help us. So you find some villages, is so much instability because they have to continuously move for safety from one area to the other. So how do you now achieve farming activities in those countries, places? So I'm also appealing for us to now look at it very carefully. We don't know how long this virus is going to stay with us for. Perhaps this is the new. And already we can see how many people have had to get food and that need food. So there is a need that we need to really go on board as quickly as possible, and we need to start farming, and the time is now. We need to start doing it right now, because if we don't, we have already missed some of the seasons in some countries, as I said, because of restrictions at the borders and so forth. Because remember, we also import in South Africa implements as well and other goods for farming. Yeah. So because of those restrictions, it is now delayed, so which means the planting season, we're going to miss some of those in some countries. We now have to find other ways of coming to terms with it.
This week in particular, I've been looking at women on the continent, their participation in the continent's economies and things like that. And I came across a statistic the other day that women in agriculture, I think, are responsible for maybe up to as much as 70% of agriculture on the continent, but very, very few operate at a commercial level. And I just wonder, how do we shift women from subsistence farming to mainstream farming, commercial farming, so that they can feed so many more people? Because clearly agriculture is something that's almost comes naturally to women.
Absolutely, 70%, you're absolutely spot on. And unfortunately, it's all these issues about rights to land, who gets land and who. But more importantly, I think there should be some educational hubs. It's one thing having the land, but if you don't know what to do with it, Peter, it's a completely different story. I've been farming now for 10 years, and it took me 7 years to be recognized as a commercial farmer in this country. And guess what? I'm still even learning right now. So it is a long process. So getting a small piece of land and just putting someone there with no support, it doesn't help. So we need to get and rebuild those extension offices and get experts and get advisors and get those to play a role. Or maybe get a big commercial farmer, partner them up with some of these smallholders farmers, because then the big farmer has already got infrastructure in place, they've got implements and so forth, and see how they can actually educate our smallholder farmers, and more in particular, the women. Is the majority of people on the continent, they're women, and the woman will ensure that a child goes to school, they'll ensure household food security. So it's very, very important. It's a very important that you're making.
All right, so how do we also, we've experienced brain drains across the continent. Our farmers have gone to other parts of the world. How do we keep that knowledge on the continent and also build new knowledge?
Well, we can rotate it. We can rotate it on the continent, and to be honest with you, I was a guest at Northwest University. I was that they're actually taking agriculture very seriously and using it as one of the subjects that can give an entry level into studying agriculture university. And I would encourage more universities to do that. We need more hubs in everything. If we create an enabling environment, no doubt we'll get those farmers to. But to be honest with you, as long as we keep those farmers on the continent, then surely it's knowledge that's now being transferred on the continent. And this is why it's important to set up and create a hub. Let's do data mapping of seeing how many farmers each country has got and how many of that are actually active and those that are not active. Because you come across a lot of them that they are farmers, but because they've not got access to land, then they cannot do their skills.